Chapter 23, The American Way, Vote. I was a rabble-rouser long before I knew what that was. As a little kid, I frequently talked my brother Tommy and my sisters Phyllis and Lonetta into following my lead in some sort of adventure. Now, admittedly, a lot of those adventures led us to getting into trouble with Mama and Daddy, but we sure had fun in the getting there. Rabble-rousing just came naturally to me, I guess. Junior high school in Cheney, Kansas had begun for me and my classmates. We started going to classes in rooms at the north end of the gymnasium. The gym was located between the grade school and the high school buildings. We felt so grown up to be separated from the grade schoolers. The locker rooms were in the basement, and the 4 classrooms were at ground level above the locker rooms. The round-top gymnasium was old. It had been built during the Great Depression by the Works Progress Administration, the WPA, as part of President Roosevelt's employment for 850 million Americans and the United States Infrastructure Program. While I was a 7th grader, Cheney Schools was building more classrooms onto the west side of the grade school. This new part of the school was ready for our 7th and 8th grade classes to move into when we started the new school year. Yay, it was exciting. Brand new classrooms. Meanwhile, during our 7th grade year, my classmates and I watched and studied the Kennedy-Nixon presidential election. We debated the pros and cons of each candidate. We made colorful posters and hung them in our school hallways and all around our classroom. Daddy liked to watch the news and talk about the possibilities of each candidate. I remember Daddy and his friend, Mr. Galen Parsons, discussing their fear of John Kennedy getting elected because he was a Catholic. They worried that Mr. Kennedy would run the United States being swayed by the Pope. Now, we kids had learned all about the separation of church and state in our history lessons, so, of course, I reminded them. Daddy chuckled and said, "Thanks, Donnis." I told Daddy we were having mock debates and election in our classroom. He asked me, "Who do you want to win the presidency, Donnie girl? Are you campaigning for him?" "John Kennedy, Daddy," I answered. I would have voted for Senator Kennedy, not necessarily because of his political track record, but because he was more handsome than Richard Nixon. I was not quite 13 years old. Campaigning? Daddy and I discussed campaigning and what that meant. He explained that groups of people got together and all decided to vote for one person, and they would try to get other people to vote for that person too. Daddy said if enough people can be convinced to vote for just one person, that person would get elected. It made sense the way Daddy explained it to me, and it gave me an idea. Valentine's Day was coming up at our junior high school, and we got to have a dance one early evening in the elementary school music room. Before the dance, all the 7th and 8th graders would hold an election to vote for who they wanted to be Valentine King and Queen, plus one boy and one girl from each class to serve as attendants. I knew that I didn't stand a chance to win Queen or attendant because I was too shy. My outgoing personality had not arrived in my life yet, and it wouldn't for many years. And I was not pretty. But I had a couple of friends who I thought would make a dandy queen or attendant. I would like to see one of them get elected. I remembered what Daddy had said about the presidential election and started talking to my friends about getting together and all voting for one person. That's the way it worked in the presidential election, so why couldn't it work the same in the 7th and 8th grade Valentine election at Cheney Schools that year? I thought it could. My friends helped me spread the word that after lunch on a Wednesday, before the election, we would hold a meeting like the presidential election. I knew that if, as a group, we chose one person for each position, that person would have a good chance to be elected. We could not use a classroom without a teacher present, so Mrs. Lois Cook volunteered to meet with us. About a week before the student meeting was scheduled, Mrs. Cook asked me to stay after class for a minute. She told me that Mr. Ridgway, our superintendent, said we could not hold the meeting. She said, "He doesn't think it's appropriate. He thinks it would be inflammatory and get students all upset about something so insignificant," his word, as a Valentine's Day election. It wasn't insignificant to us 7th and 8th graders. I was speechless. I just stood there, my mouth hanging open, staring at Mrs. Cook. "I'm so sorry, Donnis." I tried to explain, but he was adamant. No meetings to get one student elected. He said it should be a random choice on each student's part. "That's crazy," I said. "All I'm suggesting is that, well, it's the way adults get someone elected to office. Mrs. Cook, you led us in studying the presidential election last November, and my dad helped me understand how people have private meetings to promote one candidate," I argued. "I know, but," Mrs. Cook began. I interrupted her. "Does that mean we are not supposed to have opinions or talk to each other about a possible vote?" "I know what you mean, Donnis, but I cannot risk my job." "Your job?" "Yes, that's how it works. I'm a teacher. Mr. Ridgway is my boss. I have to do what he says." "Then who stands up for us students?" I asked. Mrs. Cook just shook her head. "I'm really sorry, Donnis, but welcome to the real world. That's just the way it is. I am so sorry." "You already said that," I yelled. I felt bad about lashing out at Mrs. Cook. I knew she was trying to help, but I wanted more. I wanted Mrs. Cook to remind Mr. Ridgway that this was America, gosh darn it. Americans have free speech and freedom of assembly. I think that should apply to students as well as adults. Mrs. Cook must have said something to Mr. Ridgway because that afternoon, Mr. Ridgway called me and Mrs. Cook to his office. Yikes! I never liked to visit his office unless it was my idea. If he called the meeting, it somehow always turned out badly for me, the rabble-rouser. I suspected this time wouldn't be any different. The windows in his office overlooked 6th Street. I could see that it had begun to snow. Mr. Ridgway sat behind his desk. He was balding and plump, and his cheeks were pink. His suit was perfectly tailored, and he wore it well. And he smelled good. He didn't invite me to sit down, even though there were 2 chairs in front of his desk. Mrs. Cook sat down. "I'm requesting a meeting with your mother, Miss Slusser," he said. "My mother is busy at home with our new baby Rusty," I told him. "Why am I not surprised to hear that?" He muttered something under his breath about families with too many children and not having enough time to supervise all of them. I don't suppose he meant for me to hear that. Mrs. Cook began to cough. She dug a Smith Brothers cough drop from a box in her purse. Mrs. Cook had 2 children in elementary school. Her son Kelly was a 7th grader and would have a vote in our election. That afternoon she called our home and asked Mama to come meet with us the following Monday. When Daddy heard about it, he offered to take off work the next week to meet with Mr. Ridgway in Mama's place. The meeting was set for just after 3 the next Monday afternoon with me, Daddy, Mrs. Cook, and Mr. Ridgway. As superintendent, he has veto over everything we do, Mrs. Cook told Daddy. Laughing nervously, I told my friend Sharon Hall on the phone Saturday night, "I hope I don't get expelled." "Expelled? I don't think so," Sharon exclaimed. "We are just standing up for ourselves. Be brave. Don't be afraid." When we met on that Monday, the first thing Mr. Ridgway said was, "If Donnis goes ahead with this meeting, I could expel her." Expel? He had actually said the word out loud. I have made my decision, and Mrs. Cook told her this meeting was not acceptable. It will be way too inflammatory. The students cannot... Daddy interrupted. "Now wait a gosh darn minute. I'm impressed by what Donnis and her friends are trying to do. After all, last year in class, the kids studied the Kennedy-Nixon presidential election. Donnis and I talked about how one person could be elected if enough people all voted for that one person. She is just applying this very adult idea to a junior high school election. I am so proud that she can make this jump from an adult practice to 8th grade. Mr. Ridgway came out from behind his desk. He started fiddling with the pictures hanging on his wall. I was stuck on thinking about what Daddy had said about how proud he was of me, so I missed what Daddy said next, but it ended in freedom of expression and choice. Mrs. Cook began to cough, just like she had the last time we were in the office. I just think the best thing for all concerned would be for Donnis to call off the meeting of her own free will, Mr. Ridgway said. Mrs. Cook held a tissue to her mouth, got rid of a cough drop, and cleared her throat a few times. Donnis is a good student, Mr. Ridgway, Mrs. Cook finally managed to say. She thinks for herself. She's never in trouble. I don't think it's fair. Fair, Mrs. Cook? He asked. Yes, Mrs. Cook said with conviction. I'm concerned that it will affect the morale of the students who would choose to attend this meeting. They have all heard about it and are excited to come. Daddy said, Why not give these kids a chance, Mr. Ridgway? Yeah, Mr. Ridgway, give us a chance to act like adults, I implored. That's it, Mr. Ridgway shouted, and he stood up. Almost screaming, he said, You can have the meeting. He said the last words very slowly. I half expected him to add, Dismissed. I was so relieved tears stung my eyes. I blinked hard. I did not want to let Mr. Ridgway see me cry. Out in the hall, I hugged Daddy and thanked him for standing up for me. I thanked Mrs. Cook, too. The outcome of our meeting spread like wildfire around our junior high. Mama's going to be mad, I said, but she wasn't. I am so proud of you, Donnis. You really know how to stand up for your ideas. I wish I could be more like you. On the day of our class meeting, a lot of kids were there, even the boys who teased me. The classroom was full. Kids were even standing and leaning against the chalkboards, getting chalk on the back of their clothes. I looked at Mrs. Cook. She didn't say anything. She just nodded for me to go ahead. I was afraid, but I cleared my throat, walked to the center front of the classroom, and began. I'm glad you all came, I said. We have just studied about the presidential election. My dad said that there were groups of people who got together and decided to all vote for one person. That is how they got their choice of a candidate elected. If we do that for our Valentines dance, we can nominate and maybe get the kids we choose here in this meeting elected. On the other hand, Leslie Shepard said, we can just do nothing. Everybody voting for whoever they want to, like always. Kids chuckled. But, I countered, if we stick together and just vote for one person, whoever we choose might get elected. Even you, Leslie. They all laughed, even Leslie. I secretly hoped some of my good friends' names would be nominated. A couple were. Together, in that meeting, we picked 6 students, a king and queen candidate, and 1 boy and 1 girl from each class to serve as attendants. After the official vote was counted for the dance, 2 of our 6 picks got elected, Dickie Hoffine as 8th grade attendant and Joe Schwabauer as 7th grade attendant. Victory! I was surprised when I made a few of the 7th and 8th graders mad at me for my leadership in this effort that week. I think they thought I was recommending that we vote against certain kids. I was not. I was campaigning for certain other kids. I learned a lot from my 8th grade election experience. First and foremost, to stand up for what I believe in. Oh, and by the way, I still vote in every election. And I'm still a rabble-rouser when I need to be. Chapter 24. Someone Waits for Me. We had voted for our junior high school Valentine's Day dance queen and king and their court. The winners would be crowned the night of the dance. So preparations for the dance got underway, and there was a lot to do. The teachers let us kids plan the whole thing, from decorations and refreshments to music selections. Some of us volunteered to be on the setup committee, and others volunteered to do cleanup. Our moms pitched in to help us make punch and cookies. Some of us girls spent hours making carnation flowers out of Kleenex tissues. And the boys fashioned a big chicken wire heart that we covered with crepe paper and Kleenex carnations. We twisted lengths of crepe paper that, at the last minute, would be hung in swooping rope streamers across the ceiling of the music room where the dance would be held. We girls spent a lot of time planning what we were going to wear. Most of us had already started wearing patent leather shoes with 1-inch heels to Sunday school, so a new pair for the dance was a must. And great news, I got my half-body cast cut off the week before the dance. I still held my right arm like it was in the cast, because my arm had not fully gained its strength back. I wore a bat-winged blouse that Mama made to cover up the cast. All of us faced a very important question. For the boys it was, should I ask a girl for a date? And for the girls it was, will anyone ask me to go to the dance with him? There was a boy that I liked. I was, what we called back then, crushed out on this boy. That meant that I liked him a lot, which should have been good, because I think he liked me too. He and his friends teased me almost nonstop, but I wasn't sure because I could not talk to him to find out for sure. The fact is, I could not talk to any boy at the time that I was at all interested in, because when I did, I would get all flustered and say something real stupid. Heck, I couldn't even look at him, let alone open my mouth and actually say something. I hoped he would ask me to the dance with him. He didn't. He and his buddies all went stag. I was asked to the dance by a 7th grader. His name was David Brown, and he was really cute. But I could not say yes to him. He was a 7th grader, for gosh sakes, a 7th grader. Even though he was very sweet, and did I mention cute, I simply could not go to the dance with a 7th grader. I would be so embarrassed. A 7th grader, good grief. So I went stag with my girlfriends. Then Valentine's Day arrived. We were all excited about the upcoming dance. I got to the elementary school music room early because I was on the refreshment committee and had to help Judy Morrison and Sandy Hearn set up the punch bowl and set out the cookies. I was somewhat limited in what I could do because of the recent removal of my half-body cast, but I could help a little. The class sponsors, Mrs. Lois Cook and Mr. Don Berlin, were there. Alden Althoff was there. He had been assigned to be in charge of the records and record player, which had been connected to the music room sound system. Tommy Snook came along to help Alden. Most of the records belonged to Tommy. They had the music playing softly about 15 minutes before the kids started arriving. The boys had unscrewed some of the overhead lights, so lighting in the room was dim. A few of the stage lights were on, but the stage curtains were pulled halfway closed. Everything had a soft glow. About 5 minutes before the dance was to start, my junior high school classmates began to arrive. All the girls looked so pretty in their finery, and most of the boys actually wore suits. Some of the girls went to the beauty parlor to have their hair styled for the evening, and those girls who had dates wore corsages. I was so jealous. At first, the boys stood around surveying the room. The girls stood around talking to one another and pretending not to notice the boys. Janet Winkman danced every dance with her date. He dipped her and twirled her. We watched, fascinated. Jeannie Ferguson danced to every song with a different partner. She had so much fun laughing and creating new dance steps. I wished I was outgoing like Jeannie. Rena Uppendahl was enjoying the music, but she was engrossed in a deep conversation with one of the teacher chaperones. We had all learned to square dance in 6th grade, and Tommy Snook spent most of the fast dances maneuvering a girl through square dance steps. He danced with several of the girls. He was having a good time. Dickie Hoffine was handsome, well-developed, and athletic. He had dark hair and an Elvis swagger about him. He made out in the cloakroom with ... I won't tell you who. Those who were there already know. Judy Morrison and Janet Ritchie sat on the sidelines with their heads together, whispering and giggling about some big new secret. Sharon Hall, Joe Schwabauer, and I sat on the benches that had been scooted up next to the walls. We watched the dancers. As I watched the dancing and all of the fun, I regretted that I had said no to David Brown. I realized it wouldn't have been so bad to go to the dance with a 7th grader, but it was too late. Most of the dances required having a partner to dance. However, Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot Bikini by Brian Hyland was popular that year, and when Alden started it spinning, most of us took to the floor even without a partner. The Beatles didn't come into our world until a couple of years later. The hard-grooving Motown sound had not yet caught on, at least not in the Midwest. Alden put on the first slow dance of the night, Brenda Lee singing I'm Sorry. The kids with dates swayed, while the rest of us watched and swooned. When I heard Nat King Cole singing Unforgettable, I experienced a moment that changed my outlook on life forever. He was there, and he was heading my way. I kept my eyes firmly on the floor. 7th grade cutie, David, walked right up to me. He turned to my right and asked Joe, "Can I have this dance?" I wanted to fall through the floor. My face turned 20 shades of red and burned like it did when I had a sunburn in the summer. I was so embarrassed, but I couldn't move. When the song ended, David escorted Joe back to where we were sitting. My heart was beating fast. I could tell he wanted to say something to me. I hoped it would be something good. He took a step closer and looked deep into my eyes. His were blue. I held my breath. David said, "You're shorter than I remembered." And he turned and walked away. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. When we heard Chubby Checker singing Peppermint Twist, almost everyone rushed to the floor and tried to do the twist. I danced along with everybody else to the fast songs. Some kids were more agile than others. When slow songs were playing, I busied myself at the refreshment table. The whole time I was hoping a boy, actually any boy, would ask me to dance. No one did. During the evening, the Everly brothers groveled about being Kathy's clown. The Shirelles wondered if somebody would love them tomorrow, and Connie Francis was whining about everybody being somebody's fool and assuring us that where the boys are, someone waits for me. I guess he would just have to wait, because I didn't know where that was. All in all, it was a pretty fun evening there in our elementary school music room, listening to our music, twisting and shouting, and looking for love alongside my fellow junior high school classmates. I've been telling stories since the age of 3, and I'm happy to have published the books of my father, Max, brother Tommy, and sister Lonetta Slusser Knutson. All of our books are published through Amazon and Kindle. www.amazon.com/author/Donnis Crane.